I paid for the whole wedding venue, flowers, even the damn napkins. Then my sister sent me an email. Don't come. Just watch the live stream. No explanation. No thank you. So I did one thing, canceled the $58,000 final payment the morning of. Chaos followed. Vendors left. Guests whispered. And for once they had to deal with the silence I usually swallowed. This isn't just a story about family, it's about what happens when the fixer finally walks away. Hello, this is Fazia. I received an email from my sister saying, please don't attend my wedding. Simply watch the webcast. No call. No justification. Only a link. As if I weren't the one footing the bill but a distant cousin. It wasn't the worst part though. The realization that I had spent years being useful rather than loved was even more painful. Though removed at the time, it was worth my money. How did we arrive here? Why wasn't she stopped? And if those closest to you felt you were merely handy, how would you respond? Now let me tell you what transpired. I pressed confirm on the last transfer just after 6:01 p.m. In less than 5 seconds, $50,000 was gone. As if it didn't equal almost half of my equity in this home. With the lingering smell of burnt toast from a breakfast I had only partially eaten that morning, I reclined in my kitchen chair. My mother was talking over me once more on the speakerphone in front of me. And if we let go of the string quartet, Rowan said she can definitely fit in the orchid wall. Any ideas? I don't think Delaney wants to lose the quartet, I responded. Margot lost her temper. Let the bride make the decision, Z. It's not you who is getting married. I blinked in the direction of the refrigerator and bit my lip. Once more that line. Then Delaney's voice could be heard. Loaded but chipper. Z, just unwind. You've accomplished enough. Please just stay in your lane. She had mentioned that 3 times this week. Remain in your lane. As though I had only obstructed the situation. After several more passive-aggressive insults, the call was cut off. I didn't come back. I continued to view the wire transfer confirmation on my screen while I remained seated. $50 in addition to the $20 I had already paid. Catering, venue, personalized napkins, and even the dreadful parking market liquidation. I was contributing significantly to the day of someone else who wasn't expected to focus on herself. I was idly browsing through my iPad on the couch later that night when the family group chat chimed. In order to fulfill Rowan's request for their wedding website, Delaney donated a folder of pictures from the brunch shoot last weekend. There were 17 photographs in the album. I was visible in 2. In one, I was pouring champagne while blurring in the background. In another, I appeared as a ghost behind Delaney's silk jumpsuit, with my shoulder ripped off in the middle. On that one, I zoomed in. My face is not even a shadow. It's just my suggestion. So grateful to everyone who made this moment so special, was the caption for the album. For a whole minute, I gazed at the screen. Then there was a ping. Rowan texted. Once again, thank you for the photographer, Fazia, and the Rec Plus money. They looked stunning. I didn't respond. How would I have responded? I'm grateful that you erased me in style. After carefully setting the iPad down on the coffee table, I made my way to the back patio. There was just enough wind to cause the shrubs outside to dance a little, and the spring air was warm but not heavy. After a single flicker, the porch light steadied. I tightened my cardigan and settled into the worn-out wicker chair that Dad had restored 5 years prior. Although the cushions were brand new, I never fixed the groaning frame. The way it moaned under weight had an honest quality. There was still wine in the glass on the table. I kept my hands off of it. Rather, I sat there, gazing into the middle distance as though my world had finally been marked by an invisible line. That night there was a peculiar silence. Not depressed. Not calm. Simply full. It sounded like static in my ears. Perhaps because, for the first time in months, I could actually hear myself thinking. I muttered, not to anyone, not even to myself, that I had covered the cost of this family's festivities. Why do I believe that my presence warrants an apology? The words only dangled there. I refrained from grabbing my phone. I refrained from perusing the communications that would undoubtedly accumulate by dawn. A fresh request for each. Could you give the baker a call? Are you able to pay the remaining amount for the linens? Is it possible for you to get Delaney's hairpiece from the store? They never asked for permission. They never expressed gratitude. Only we assumed you were okay. Perhaps I hadn't. Perhaps the ease of being wanted had been sufficient for a while. Since I was helpful, I couldn't be disregarded. However, I came to the realization tonight that being seen just when someone wants something was worse than being invisible. Delaney had once described the wind chimes as tacky, yet a breeze blew past them. I enjoyed them. I was reminded by the sound that some objects may make noise even when you weren't looking. The kitchen lights were still on inside. I was now completely awake, but my laptop screen had gone blank. I spent more time outside on the terrace than normal. The house's inside light had dimmed and the slight cold in the breeze reminded me that night wasn't coming. At last I got up, loosened my tense legs and went inside, gently clicking the sliding door shut behind me. It was almost 9:30 by the time I made my way upstairs and took a seat in the corner of my home office. I switched on my laptop, turned on the desk lamp, and launched my spreadsheet for budgeting. The costs of the wedding remained, line by line, one after the other. They're all connected to my bank. Rowan's charges, the custom napkin orders, the deposit for the 4-tier cake Delaney swore she couldn't live without. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing the bridge of my nose when my phone rang. Mom lit up the screen. I paused. Let it ring once, twice, then I picked up. "Hey," I said flatly. No warmth. No preamble. I was just checking in. "How are you holding up?" I heard Delaney's been a little tense. Tense? That's how she framed it. "I'm fine," I said. "A little tired." There was a pause followed by a low sigh. "Fazia, listen. Your sister's under a lot of pressure. It's her big day and there are so many moving parts. You know how these things go." I didn't answer right away. She continued, "I know you've always been the steady one, the logical one, and I respect that. But maybe now's the time to let Delaney shine. You've had your career, your independence. Delaney only has this." There it was. The familiar script. "You're saying I should step aside so she doesn't feel overshadowed?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "I'm saying just don't make this about you. Please don't ruin this for her." Before I could say another word, she hung up. I stared at the phone stunned. Not because I hadn't heard it all before, but because this time it didn't sting the same way. Not as much. I went back to the spreadsheet, opened the vendor folder, clicked through receipts. I wasn't doing this for recognition. I'd given up on that years ago. But I wasn't doing it to be erased either. Another ping. I looked down, an email notification. Subject line, guest list finalized, from Delaney. I clicked. The message opened with no greeting. No "Hey sis," just a statement. "After talking with Callum and his family, we've decided to keep the ceremony very small. Given the seating limits and some sensitivities on his side, we think it would be best if you attend virtually. We'll send a PRI Margot link for the live stream." My stomach tightened. This will help keep everything smooth and dramery. Hope you understand. Then in italics at the bottom, like a throwaway joke. "Don't take this the wrong way. LOL." I stared at the screen, not blinking, just frozen. There was no room for misinterpretation. No space to tell myself I was overreacting. I'd been asked, not invited, to watch my sister's wedding on a screen. Like a stranger. Like some distant acquaintance. Not the woman who had covered nearly every bill. No greeting. No apology. Not even a thank you. Just a link. I sat there motionless for a while, my hands flat on the desk. My office felt colder than before. I glanced at the wine glass I had brought up earlier. Still full. Still untouched. I read the email again. Then I hit reply, typed 4 words. "Sure, enjoy your day." No punctuation. No emotion. Just precision. I clicked send, shut the laptop, and stood. Downstairs, the house was silent. I poured the wine into the sink, washed the glass, dried it. Every motion steady. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just knew something had shifted. Something I couldn't name yet. But it felt permanent. I walked back upstairs and crawled into bed. The ceiling fan whirred softly. The email buzzed again. A calendar invite, this time with the live stream link. I turned the phone face down on the nightstand and turned off the lamp. But I didn't sleep. Not yet. Because while they were busy planning the perfect photo ops and floral centerpieces, I was making my own plan. One that didn't include being treated like a placeholder. One that didn't include begging to be seen. The sun hadn't even crept over the rooftops when I got up. No alarm. No noise. Just that heavy stillness you feel when your body gives up on pretending to rest. I slipped on my shoes and grabbed a hoodie off the hook. The sky was still dark blue. Just starting to break into gray. I didn't bring my phone. I didn't need to check the time to know it was too early for anyone else to be out. That was the point. The streets were quiet, save for the occasional click of a sprinkler or the rustle of a trash bin knocked crooked by last night's wind. I walked without thinking about where I was going. My feet seemed to know something I didn't, like they had decided that moving forward was better than sitting still. I passed Mrs. Kepler's house. Her porch light was on, and the faint smell of her rosemary bush drifted across the sidewalk. It reminded me of the time I brought her soup after her surgery, and Delaney called it brown water with a superiority complex. I didn't laugh back then, and I definitely wasn't laughing now. My pace slowed near the corner, where the trees shaded the sidewalk just enough to make me feel invisible. That was the first time I noticed how good that felt, being unseen but not ignored. No expectations. No reminders that I was the responsible one, or the sister with the real job. At the end of the street, I turned into the small neighborhood park. The benches were still damp from morning dew, and the swings hung motionless, like they too had nothing left to say. I sat down on the farthest bench, the one under the busted light post. That spot had always been mine, since before Delaney had her first boyfriend, before I bought my house, before Callum was even a name in our lives. And that's when the memories came. Not loud, not fast, just steady, like water under a door. I remembered the dinner 6 years ago. I had just received the Rising Star Award from the firm. A big deal, even if no one in my family fully grasped what it meant. I brought the plaque with me stupidly, like a child showing off a perfect spelling test. We ate at Delaney's place. Callum was there too. My mother complimented the table runner before asking if Delaney was finally moving in with him. I had smiled then, nodded, told myself they didn't mean it that way, that it was just a timing thing, that they just didn't know how to express pride, that maybe Delaney needed the spotlight more. I told myself a lot of things. Sitting on that bench now, I didn't feel angry. I felt exhausted. Exhausted from years of rehearsing excuses on their behalf. Tired of translating disrespect into neutrality. Done rebranding silence as grace. There was one moment though that kept coming back to me, clearer than the rest. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through old voice messages. There it was. From last winter. The day after I told Mom I was thinking of starting my own practice. She had called me back late that night. I had saved the message. I pressed play. Her voice was softer than usual. Maybe tired. Maybe just trying to sound kind. Z, I know you're going through a lot, but you've always been the steady one. I'm proud of you. I am. It's just, I only really have hope left in your sister. She's our last shot at a normal family, you know? Click. I sat there holding the phone like it had gained weight in my hand. I didn't cry. I cried the first time I heard it. Then again the next 10 times. I used to replay it when I needed motivation, when I felt weak and wanted to remember why I had to push harder. Why I had to be okay with not being enough. But not this time. I hovered over the screen for a beat, then tapped delete. The screen blinked and it was gone. Not archived. Not moved to a folder. Gone. I sensed the chain breaking for the first time. The wood felt cool on my sweatshirt as I reclined on the bench. Off in the distance a dog barked. A door somewhere slammed. Although the day was beginning, I wasn't in a rush to get there. I wasn't in a rush to prove anything for once. The peacekeeper had been me. The one who fixes things. The one who made family conflicts disappear like creases in a cheap tablecloth. However, maintaining your dignity shouldn't be sacrificed for peace. And something was worth saving if it could be fixed. I wasn't entirely certain. My legs were cold and stiff, so I rose up and stretched. It took longer to walk home. I took note of more. It is necessary to paint the mailboxes. In between the walkways, weeds are growing. The overhead sound of birds talking in a tree. I went back inside and brewed tea. No phone. No laptop. Just silence that didn't feel like punishment, a mug and hot water. I had erased more than a voicemail for the first time in my adult life. I had erased the notion that I should give them an explanation for why I had become weary of being the person they only contacted when it was free of charge. The days that followed were filled with a weight that you are unaware of until it becomes a part of your chest. I kept myself occupied by working, going to the grocery store, and running unnecessary errands simply to get out of the home. Anything to prevent sitting too motionless or thinking too much. However, I had committed to attending the rehearsal dinner, which was approaching. I was dressed simply yet elegantly, and I was 20 minutes early. A dress in dove gray, studs made of pearls, low ankles, nothing ostentatious. I didn't want to attract attention, but I wasn't sure what impact that would have. Without saying anything, the Margolette grabbed my car. When I entered the hotel lobby, I walked by the easel holding the sign that read, Delaney and Callum's Rehearsal Dinner Grand Ballroom. Beneath it was a printed list of acknowledgements in beautiful script. Callum's parents, close relatives, friends, the organizing crew, and Rowan events deserve special recognition. There was no sign of my name. I read it twice, then moved aside as Rowan came up, feigning to adjust my earring. She smiled and remarked, The ballroom looks amazing. This was truly made possible by you. I gave a nod, happy it all came together. She continued on, already pulling in the direction of a gathering of vendors who were waving her down. I only paused at the entrance long enough to catch my breath before entering. I will provide them the beauty of the space. Tall focal points, personalized name cards, glasses with gold rims, menus on handcrafted paper. My place card was shoved back into a corner by the staff hallway at table 14. A few feet away were the restrooms. The smell of bleach and something faintly citrus struck my nostrils each time the door opened. You're the sister, right? Asked my seatmate. A lady I hardly knew and a relative I hadn't seen since high school. Like maybe I'm the florist instead. As pictures flashed, Delaney stood arm in arm with Callum across the ballroom, gleaming beneath the gentle uplights. In a staged toast that was beautifully framed by 2 ivory columns, she raised her glass. The photo does not include me. I was seated out of sight, with a wall-mounted stack of high chairs and a utility door in front of me. In their minds they had literally put me where I belonged, out of sight. Get out of the path. I left some food on my plate. I folded my napkin, sipped water and took a few nibbles of salad. I took my time standing so as not to attract attention. I gave the cousin a shoulder tap. Long day. I am leaving early. She checked her phone and gave a courteous nod. I was not stopped. Nobody took notice. My car was delivered in 3 minutes by the Margolette. There was silence on the way home. I did not switch on the radio at all. I parked outside the house and spent a considerable amount of time inside the vehicle. Turn off the engine. Still coiled around the steering wheel were fingers. I grabbed my phone and sent Delaney a fresh message that said, Hey! I saw that my seat was by the bathroom and that I was not given any credit elsewhere. I gazed at it, then pressed delete. I typed one more, Are we all right? I also backspaced that. The screen went blank. In the mirror I saw a weary reflection. I'm sick of composing courteous little letters to individuals who didn't realize they were tearing me to bits. I put the phone away, locked it and took a seat. A clear, steady thought drifted up. No more soft entry. The house was silent inside. I dropped my handbag on the couch, switched on the living room's lone lamp, and kicked off my shoes near the entrance. The rug had small indentations from my heels. For some reason the details stuck in my mind. I leaned on the counter, poured a glass of water and took it carefully. Not upset. Not resentful. Finished. They had communicated by being absent rather than by using words. And I got it. Not only in my email. Not only the chair by the bathroom. I heard it clearly, transmitted in all the Margotkin places where recognition ought to have existed. And I realized now, something I had not previously allowed myself to acknowledge, that you can draw a line without screaming. Stop trying to explain yourself to those who never pay attention. I got myself together as I always do by the time Friday arrived. Meetings at work. Errands for groceries. Talk lightly about the weather with a neighbor. All of this contributed to keeping the appearance that everything was all right. However, something had changed underneath it. Not exactly broken but a little bit altered. Some tamsiner to a door that, after the frame warps, no longer completely closes. I had iced tea with Aubrey at the cafe by Barton Springs that afternoon. Since college, we had maintained a friendship that didn't depend on performance. That morning she texted me to ask if I had time to escape the noise of work and family. I didn't have to inquire about her meaning. The air had a sticky warmth that adhered to your skin, and the terrace was partially shaded. While Aubrey continued to glance at the dessert menu without actually reading it, I stirred the ice in my glass. She was preparing something. The way she tapped her fingernails against her glass told me. Foss, she began, continuing to gaze down. I really wasn't going to say anything, but I can't act like this any longer. I gave her a look. All right. Last week, I assisted Delaney in completing the table arrangement. I understand that she was under stress. However, she once chuckled and remarked, "As long as my sister continues to pay, we're golden." Her exact words. Between us, the quiet became deeper. I took a while to react. Aubrey went on, sounding as though we were talking about a corpse buried in her backyard. "You know she's not going to pull out," she continued. "She never does." As if it were a joke she had told 100 times, she laughed once more. I reclined in my chair, allowing the seat's plastic to pierce my back. I kept my hands folded tightly, as if I was worried that if I released them, they may fly across the table. At last, I answered at a level voice, "She's not wrong. Anyway, not yet." Aubrey gave a headshake. "You're not a pocketbook. You're being treated like one by her." I didn't respond. I simply grabbed my tea and drank it. The moisture had gathered beneath the sweating glass like a creeping leak. A promise to speak soon that neither of us would have to follow through on right away led us to split ways an hour later. I kept the windows down on the way home. I wanted the loudness, even though the air was dense. There would have been too much agreement in the automobile if there had been silence. The sun was low enough to create lengthy shadows in the yard by the time I pulled into my driveway. Out of habit, I opened my phone and dropped my bag on the dining table. Delaney's Instagram profile lingered on my screen like an open wound, still up from the morning. "Special thanks to my future mother-in-law for the most heartfelt gift," was her most recent narrative, which appeared right away. She was seen in the video clutching the identical necklace I had ordered, which was a reimagining of Nana's old pendant. Delaney used to claim that the one was too antiquated for her preferences. The jeweler had been located. I had paid for it. I had even penned the following note: "Something old that should always belong to you." I was not mentioned at all. No tag. Not a trace. In the video, her eyes were wet with emotion as she smiled. She told the camera. She knew exactly what I wanted. What a lady. Still holding the lighted phone, I took a seat on the edge of the couch. The betrayal was not unexpected. It came on like a headache you didn't know was getting worse until you were unable to see well. I didn't send her a text. I did not make a call. Instead, I took the stroll to my office, took out my laptop, and opened the wedding folder I had made 6 months prior. Agreements. Money. Timelines. Well prepared. I selected my name on the signature line of the florist's agreement. I'm the decorator too. I looked through digital invoices, PDFs, and fully paid receipts. There was a margotriant of my name on every document. Salet F. Fazia S. Each arch of flowers. Each chair has a covering. Each customized centerpiece. I opened a fresh folder. It was clearly labeled "If they push me farther." Everything was copied into it. No rage. Don't cry. The accuracy of someone who at last realized that silence had never kept her safe. It had simply made erasing her simpler. I shut down my laptop and let the room to grow dark. I had finished responding. I'm done letting other people decide what was excessive. It was assumed that I wouldn't notice. They failed to remember that I was the one who saved the receipts. I closed the laptop and sat for a long time in the dark, with the doorway barely illuminated by the hallway's glow. Nothing remained for processing. Only choices to execute. I didn't have trembling hands. I knew I was past the point of reacting because of that. There wasn't going to be a moment of rage next. It was deliberate. Callum's family had invited me to a cocktail gathering the next evening. Another small party at a downtown store with strangers there, all grinning courteously and keeping score. Weeks ago, I had already decided on my dress. A delicate lavender that was clean and subtle. When I tried it on, I thought it was just the right amount of exquisite and unnoticeable. Not ostentatious, but sufficient to prove my existence. After parking close to the location, I entered and provided my name at the entrance. The chilly air was scented with money and roses. A hostess welcomed me and gave me a name tag. No title. Only Fazia. I observed it in a matter of minutes. My outfit and the uniforms of 3 catering employees were almost the same. The same color. Identical hemline. The neckline is almost the same. After giving me a quick look, a woman by the bar pushed her friend and said something. Didn't realize the servers were off the clock tonight, her pal chuckled. I didn't respond, not visibly. But from the other side of the room, I got Rowan's attention. Holding the clipboard she never left behind, she looked around the room, evaluating everything. There was a moment when we locked eyes. Not an apology. Recognition. I was there for maybe 20 minutes. I took a single drink of sparkling water, nodded in a hollow hello, smiled as anticipated, and excused myself. One of them said, "You done for the night, miss?" as I passed the Margolette. I grinned. "More than you realize." I took off my shoes when I got home and put on an old hoodie and leggings. I didn't switch the lights on. Through the curtains the city outside gleamed dimly. I quickly navigated to the finance dashboard after opening my laptop once more. The last payment, $58,000, was in line to be released at 7 a.m. the next day. I gazed at it. 11 minutes went by. I remained motionless. And then I clicked cancel silently. "Are you sure you want to cancel this transfer?" appeared as the prompt. "It is impossible to reverse this action." I didn't think twice. Indeed, after shutting down the browser, I stood motionless in my apartment. A flush of satisfaction did not occur. Just the firm weight of authority, returning to its proper place. The following morning I headed to the bank. I dressed in muted hues. No cosmetics. The hair was pulled back. I wished to remain unseen. I desired to be heard. The branch manager, Carlos, welcomed me with his customary tactful professionalism. "Miss Sal, good to see you again." I pushed the prepared folder over the desk as I followed him into his office. The printed copies of the contracts I had looked over the previous evening were inside. I said in a neutral tone, "I would like to formally cancel the final vendor payments related to this event." Carlos took a look at the papers. "Of course we can do it. Just be aware that this timing has some consequences." "I get it." After a moment of hesitation, he leaned forward a little. "Want us to let the recipients know?" I gave a head shake. "No. They will work things out." With a nod he started the paperwork. He said softly, "You don't have to give me an explanation, but you look different today." I gave a faint smile. "I feel different." He slipped it into a folder as I signed the final page. "Everything is in order. Please notify us if anything worsens on their end." They will not intensify. There are no repercussions for their arguments. Until it's too late, they simply disregard them. I walked out into the morning light after leaving the bank. The air had a fresh feeling. In May, Chris will be heading to Texas. I took a while to return home. A delivery man unloading crates, women wheeling strollers, and someone laughing too loudly on speakerphone were among the individuals I observed as I made my way to a bench outside a bakery I used to visit with my dad. The globe was in motion. And I had just decided to go with it however I saw fit. Nobody anticipated it. That's the problem with silent individuals, though. Our cuts are the cleanest. Time passes slowly on a Sunday afternoon when you're waiting for something you're not really expecting. On the couch in the living room, I was folding laundry. My phone buzzed as I was gathering socks, towels, and a fitted sheet that I still hadn't figured out how to fold correctly. My cousin Tamsin sent me a message saying, "Hey, everyone is already on Zoom. All they want to do is chat. Simply listen to them." Actually, it wasn't a question. And I was already aware of who everyone was. After a few moments of staring at the screen, I tapped the link. Faces flooded the screen. Before I could say hello to everyone, my mother was already speaking. Delaney clenched her jaw and sat perfectly. Gerald appeared disinterested. Callum showed up in another window, drinking something from a ceramic mug, as if this were just another Sunday get-together. Nobody inquired about how I was. Mom began by using her typical tactless diplomacy. "Sweetheart, we're only worried about Fuzia. We've always known we could rely on you, so this last-minute stuff doesn't feel like you." Gerald added his voice. "We simply don't comprehend how you could leave at this late hour. It has nothing to do with you. The family is the focus." Callum said, but Delaney raised her hand as if it were a gesture of grace. Then she said something. "Be calm. Measured. Nearly practiced. You've had jealousy all your life. Let's simply call it that. You turn everything that goes well for me into something about yourself. And this demonstrates it." Without moving, the room whirled. I kept my hands in my lap. I unmuted my microphone. My voice remained steady. "Let's clarify something. Your wedding was not called off by me. My funding was canceled. You instructed me to stay at home and watch online, like a divorced uncle you don't want photographed. And you canceled me when you sent that email. Margot let out a gasp. You're going overboard. Delaney gave an eye roll. The most significant day of my life is being ruined by you. Gerald whispered. You're playing the martyr. I continued to stare at the screen. No. I've finished being the ATM that never requests a receipt. I'm sick of hearing that I'm too much every time I realize how little room I'm allotted. I hit leave meeting after that. The silence that followed came instantly. Not calm. Simply remain quiet. The sort that calms down when a door slams. It was hardly 2 minutes before the calls began. My mother came first. From Delaney after that. Then Tamsin. Then Delaney once more. I waited for each to cease ringing. The text then arrived. She's gone crazy. What on earth is the matter with her? Foss, just repair it. For once in your life. I watched the sky change from peach to gray, then to a dusty purple, which marked the beginning of yet another warm Austin night, while I sat by the window. Even though my tea was cold, I continued to hold onto the mug as though it would keep my hands occupied. They're unfamiliar with me, I remarked out loud. And that was accurate. The woman who stopped apologizing for asking questions was unknown to them. The person who realized that contempt is not justified by blood. I didn't owe them my back because I was the trustworthy one. They were familiar with the quiet side of me that kept things civil. The person who signed the paperwork, submitted the check, and bit her tongue. It was no longer a Margot Tamsin bull. I had previously granted them permission to remain silent. The barrier was this quiet. What about a boundary's beauty? It doesn't require an explanation. All that has to be done is enforce it. I pictured her reworking the story in her mind while sipping coffee in the kitchen. One in which I was challenging. One in which she exerted every effort. Each of them had their own version. However, I had mine. And I had decided to trust it at last. I wasn't mean. I was not unstable. I didn't feel envious. I was the type of person who set boundaries and refused to back down when they attempted to paint them in a negative light. Furthermore, establishing a line redefines what comes ahead rather than erasing what came before. I spent 2 weeks in Denver. I read, strolled through new streets, worked at a distance. I didn't realize I had smiled at the front desk employee on the 3rd morning. By the 5th, when someone said, traveling alone? I didn't recoil. I went back to the balcony where it had started on my final night. I got a nice, non-flirty nod from a man a few tables away. I gave it back and went back to reading. I wasn't alone. I was simply by myself. There is a distinction. I believe that people misinterpret walking away because they think it's dramatic. Doors slamming. People spoke up. One-liners interrupt the endings. However, it is usually quiet. It's easy. It's someone who doesn't appear where they usually would. No farewell remarks. Just not there. I didn't go back to the same residence when I returned to Austin. I went back to myself. I'll be accused of ruining the wedding. Let me state that I saved myself. Setting limits doesn't always make you the bad guy. You become free as a result. If this entire experience has taught me anything, it's that while silence may keep the peace, it may also cost you your job. Additionally, the longer you let yourself be used, minimized, or disregarded, the more you forget that you were ever entire in the first place. I stayed with my family instead of leaving them. I moved in my own direction. Perhaps you are the one keeping everything together for those of you who are watching. Perhaps you have been the responsible one for years. The one that is tolerant. The one who merely desires harmony among all. What I want you to understand, though, is that being trustworthy does not imply that you should deprive others of their dignity. And if you're wondering if it's acceptable to put yourself before the roles that other people make you play or to choose peace over involvement, the answer is yes. Not simple. Unclean. However, absolutely. I have a question for you. Have the people closest to you ever made you feel invisible? Have you ever had to leave because remaining would have meant losing who you were rather than because you wanted to? Tell me in the comments. Tell me your story, please. Additionally, please leave a 1 in the comments section below if this video helped you feel seen, even in a small way. Or let me know from where you're viewing. Additionally, it's acceptable if you didn't enjoy it. Tell me what didn't sit well and we can discuss it. Being flawless is not why we are here. Our purpose is to be truthful. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more stories like this one, real, unmarketed, and based on what it means to be human. Your assistance keeps these tales alive and accessible to those who may also need them. The problem with betrayal is that it creates something new while also shattering something. Sometimes taking a step back is a better course of action than retaliating. To put peace above performance. The ideal form of retaliation? Living a good life. Establishing limits. Quietly heal. Try making room for yourself if you're harboring anger. Let dignity speak for itself. I would be interested in hearing your tale if you have ever experienced betrayal from a loved one. Leave a remark below, your voice counts here, and you're not alone. And describe for me what it means to you to rise above.